Welcome to the channel Drive. This video is a part of IAMA series. In this episode, we are having Pradeep Soundararajan talking on the topic all things software testing.
My name is Pradeep Soundararajan, and I have been a tester for a long time. And then I figured out that I have some pretty good testing friends. And so I thought I should leave testing to them and start focusing on the business side of things. And I started to build Moolya and Appachhi. And the Moolya has been primarily focused on services, which has given me an opportunity to connect, to work with a lot of testers. And it gives a lot of great interaction that I have with these testers. And then I started working on a product, and so the Bagasura is one of the products that we're building. So for me, it has taken a long time for me to become a businessman. It's easier said than done. We think that we just start a company, we become a businessman. It took me 5 years after starting the company to actually go to Google and search for what does a CEO actually do. So that's my journey of and I've been very nervous when I was away from testing. So I'm hardcore passionate even today. I get into some of the very tough testing problems. And so that way it's quite exciting. So now picking up some of the questions to start answering, not in the sequence that it's asked. I'm just reading those questions and trying to come up with those answers. I did see those questions, but I didn't prepare an answer because I am an impromptu in a lot of senses, so I would like it to be impromptu. So from that sense, I will start off with a question somebody has asked, saying that please tell us something about storytelling in testing. When I was this is Sandeep Garg. Sandeep Garg asked about storytelling in testing. When I was a kid, my aunt used to tell me stories, and following used to happen. And so he has listed out a few things, and he's asking about storytelling in testing. There is quite a lot of material out there about storytelling for testers, but I think that when we find a bug, we are telling a story about about a problem that's happening with the product. When we go ask questions to people about learning about the functionality or learning about the product, what they tell to us is also a story that a user is expected to do this and this and this. So people are continuously telling us stories, and we are continuously listening stories. And for me, the mails that testers write, the bug reports that they write is all a powerful storytelling. So to answer Sandeep's question, the more now, we don't look at it as a story, right? We look at it as a bug that I clicked this, I did this, I entered this input, and this thing happened. That's so boring, Yes, of course it happened, but what is important? What will give motivation for the developer to fix the bug? Is if you would tell a story that the last time this happened, we lost $500,000, right? See, the whole impression about the bug itself changed completely. You could say, oh, I clicked here, I did this, I did that, and then there was a crash. Or like my automated test helped me find the bug or something like that. So what people are buying in today are actually stories. And if you were to go study about bug advocacy, which is published in Kem Kenner's work, you will find out that bug advocacy is primarily about how testers can present Yeah. Okay. I think it froze for a second, so I'm just going to repeat that. That there's a good material on bug advocacy that the testers need to go study. I've largely benefited from it thanks to Kim Keller and the people associated with him who have contributed this. It's free material for you to go read about it. And but I must warn you this. I've also seen testers taking bug advocacy to a fictional sense. So instead of saying, so we should be able to speak with facts. So in terms of saying, if this bug costed $500,000 the last time it occurred on production, is should be backed by facts. It should not be like, oh, if this bug goes live and there can be a whole lot of problems and some fictional story, people don't buy that. We need to speak with facts. We need to be more specific. So that's in a nutshell about storytelling. I'll move on to another question. In the meanwhile, Neeraj Yadav says hi, Pradeep. Yes, hi, Neeraj. Dilesh says hi. Ujes says hi. Sandeep Garg is also here. Pranay is also here. Nice to see you all here. Thanks for your time as well over this Saturday, and I hope more people are expecting to join. Okay, so I'm moving on to another question. So those of you who are live can also ask some questions, and it's oh yes. So Gaurav asks me a question on security testing is hype, or we can make a career on that. Okay, I'm gonna come and answer that for sure. So the other thing, Mahesh has also asked a few questions. Is saying, heard at Step In Summit where you talked about your initial days as a tester and how you managed to not only take a big leap in terms of knowledge you have, but also in terms of career growth. It was inspiring. Oh, I suck big time at actually career, job decisions. I was pathetic actually. I mean, so nobody wanted me. They kept firing me, and I've told the story umpteen number of times. So I think the more I got fired, the better my career grew. I'm not saying that you all should follow that, but I'm just saying that that's how it happened. So I was quite courageous and I was bold, and I used to question and challenge things which in some cultures people didn't like, and they were constantly wanting me out of the company or out of the team and things like that. And that's how I ended up starting my own company, because there's nobody who's going to give me a job. So I read this story where Buddha tells this student about a rabbit and a fox fox chasing a rabbit, and the student comes and asks who's going to win, and then Buddha says fox is running for a meal, but the rabbit is running for life. So for fox there are options to go from one rabbit to another rabbit, but for that rabbit there's only one life. So I'm like that rabbit. I was running for life, and nobody was going to give me jobs, and multiple foxes were trying to chase me. So I would say my career growth happened, because I was not willing to give up my core skill of courage, and I think that's what has helped me. I wouldn't say grow phenomenally in the career, but I would say I today have a satisfaction. Uh, I have a great satisfaction as a tester for the variety of projects that I've worked on, for the depth of the projects that I've worked on. I'm very, very, very satisfied. I've got my satisfaction as a tester, and I've not yet got my satisfaction as a businessman, and that's the reason why I'm still on here. And more so when I say a businessman, I'm looking to solve a problem at a large scale, and the testing problem is at large scale already, and I'm certainly looking to solve that. Okay, now I'm gonna switch to Gaurav's question. Is security testing is a hype, or can we make a career in that? Great question. Performance testers, security testers, and these niche skills. I have seen that. Um, I've seen that there's not a continuous work like how the functional testing work, that can happen. I know a few people who are specialized in security testing, and they get work like, they get work one right now, and then they get 3 months from now. But what I see some people have done, there's this guy, his name is Sebi Blindu. What he does is he makes good money out of bug bounty programs across a lot of these big companies. So you can certainly make a great career out of that. You can make a career out of that. But here's what it is. You need to be really, really good at it. Really good at it. I mean, so it's not about running tools, running security scanners. It's not about knowing a few hacks that is very popular and trying out and saying that, okay, now I'm a security tester. It's the mindset. It's a skill set to be able to see what kind of vulnerabilities would this application have, and bypassing the authentication, bypassing firewalls and things like that. That requires absolute network knowledge. That requires absolute application layer knowledge. That requires absolute, the whole architecture. Most of what I see is that I don't see people with that depth today in this industry. That really bugs me. So a lot of testers. So the big reason why testers have a very a bad reputation even today, it's primarily because most of them are very shallow, very shallow. I cringe when I see some of the bug reports. It's because it's so. I think there is a delay. So I was explaining about the depth that still answering Gaurav's question. So most of what I see is a lot of testers scratch the surface. There's a clear lack of depth in any of the topics that they've actually picked up. So what happens is, if 9 out of 10 times people work with shallow thinking testers, they assume that the 10th tester is also like that, and by the time they've reached that 10th thinking tester, they would have set up processes and structures, which unfortunately comes and affects those real thinking testers, and the thinking testers get frustrated of, why do I need to execute this test cases where my brain can operate a little better. So that's what it is about, making a career out of security testing, or be it any other specialized skill set. And then there's another question here. It says, right now my skill set is manual and automation testing. What are the skills I need to develop to become full stack QA, like a full stack developer? What are the things I need to learn to make my career successful in testing? Okay, so it's very, very hard for people to be really good in both manual, which is, let's say, exploratory testing, and automation. They're certainly, so what I'm saying is, there are a lot of people in the industry who say that, yes, I know this and this. And then I ask them a question. Okay, so, given a choice, okay, which one would you say you're really, really good at? I mean, like, for instance, like, let's say you say you know both manual and automation, right? You say, so which one are you good at? Let's say you say, I'm good at automation. So then, why do you? So then, what is it that you want to focus on? Now we have to look at this. Be it manual, or be it automation, or tomorrow be it AI or whatever, right? We are in the service of creating great products. So any tester, irrespective of the approach, irrespective of whether they are manual, automation, AI, bot, or whatever, if they are adding value for product, they are certainly going to succeed. They are absolutely going to succeed. Today, people spend time learning Selenium, learning APM, learning Espresso, learning all the fancy tools available in the market, and they keep learning tools. But who is learning about what is creating great product value? Who is concerned? Who has the capacity to fix a cultural issue in the problem, which is actually affecting the whole product quality? Like, for instance, recently, you know what happened? I wrote to a customer. So I wrote to a customer that, hey, the product teams and the engineering teams are not working together. What's it, cohesively. So if these two teams are not working together, and you are saying why is a bug missed in a production, it's absolutely senseless. Now for me as a tester, I would dare to say that, look, there's a problem upstream. I would go and point it out to the CTO, to the CEO, and say, look, you people need to set a better culture over here for our product to succeed. And chumma coming down to the tester and saying, oh, you missed this, and things like that is not going to help. So I think it's actually Dilesh, right? Okay, Dilesh, success is a byproduct of you creating value for either a product that you're working or for somebody who has a vision. Right now, for them, you're trying to bring up many different approaches, which is fantastic. But what is the value you're contributing from your manual and automation testing? Okay, for instance, okay, I know a lot of people want to work in automation. I know there's a ton load of people who try to reinvent framework, who write to scripts and all of that stuff. The cost of maintenance of automation, and every time when there is a new product release that happens, and these people have to go and update their scripts, where will the focus be? Will the focus be on the script fixing, or will the focus be about product quality? Obviously, it's not going to be on the product quality. It is going to be on fixing the script so that the automation works. So the focus is going on automation. Automation works, but the product doesn't work for the user, right? And I think that we all should go focus on value. And for me, fortunately or not, after I named the company Moolya, which means value, every day morning I wake up and say, what is value? What is value for the customer? It keeps changing, and it's so hard for us to be able to meet that value thing. So I think anyone who focuses on value and then says, oh, this value I can add through manual, this value I can add through automation, this value I can add through AI, this value I can add through bots, is a person who is going to largely succeed. And this person may not know Selenium. This person may not know certain tools, but this person is going to figure out based on the need, or this person is going to be able to hire those people and say, I know Selenium, you know APM, so I'll do the web part, you do the mobile part, and that's the way that people are going to contribute, this value. So let's focus on product value. So who creates that product value are the people who are going to succeed, be it a tester, be it a developer, or be it a product owner. Great. Okay, so and then I'm moving to a few other questions. I feel testing is not successful in Agile. Given the 10 days, the QA gets to test something on the 7th or 8th day, which isn't enough. With the pressure of closing the sprint, QA are forced to finish testing. Okay, what do you think? Yes, because everybody goes through this experience that you're talking about. Now, as a community, we also are supposed to get together and say, this Agile thing is not working, right? But what we do is we keep our mouth shut, and then the next time when we go to interviews, somebody asks, have you worked on Agile? You know what my answer is? When customer, so customers ask me, Pradeep, does your company have experience working in Agile projects? And I say this. I say, what do you mean by Agile? Right? Okay, so that's how I start my conversation. And I say, well, we've worked on 50 different versions of Agile. Because in every company, they call it Agile, and they have their own approach to Agile. And you're right. My experience has not been actually too different. I know some of the people in the Western world would say, oh, that's not how it works. Well, I would say welcome to India. Just come over and see here about the pressure that the testers are actually put in the name of agile, right? So, so what I would say is that people have taken good concepts and have actually, seen an opportunity to squeeze things. Ideally, the dev team is supposed to say, well, we need more time, and hence the QA or the testing needs more time. But that usually never happens. Now, if we stand up and say that, hey, look, I've not had time, but here is where you need to increase your knowledge of how you do risk advisory, because as testers, we are risk advisors. So if somebody comes to me and says, oh, you just, my plan was for 7 days, but I have 3 days to test, I would say, look, my plan was for 7 days, I have only 3 days to test, so which means I have to cut down 4 days of work. And if I were to do a trade-off of this 4 days of work versus this 4 days of work, we would be doing better. This would come with these risks, and you will not have a full detailed depth coverage as I originally envisioned. But here's what happens. Testers soak in the pressure, and I've given a talk about this. Testers soak in the pressure. They work hard and they produce an output, and obviously they were not able to cover everything. And then when something bombs off, depending on the culture of the company, they would just then hold accountable and things like that, right? So I think we need to pick up the risk advisory part of it during such context, and we also need to go back to people who actually wanted to bring agile into the company and say, do you think it's really working? It's not working for me. How are you going to solve my problem? And these are the problems I have, right? So that's a conversation I have with my customers. I don't hesitate if that's because of that reason the project is going to go away or something like that. Because if I say yes to them, my testers are going to suffer. So I am trying to be very careful about not making my testers suffer. But even after that, sometimes some people change in the customer location, and then the culture changes, and this thing happens. So that's where we are in the battle of trying to help them learn basic software engineering. So I think that's what it is. So and then, hi Pradeep. How can I become good at exploratory testing? What are the things I need to learn to better myself as an exploratory tester? So this is a very broad question, Pranav. So what I would say is that the people, a lot of experts out there, be it people like James and Michael and John Bach and Ben Simo and all of these people have laid out some pretty good content out there. And learning is a combination of knowledge and skills and connects and experience and failing and all of that stuff, right? So that's what becoming, that's what is the recipe to become good. So you don't need to crunch everything and say, okay, this is the syllabus of exploratory testing, or this is the syllabus of testing itself. So one thing that you could be doing is to say, okay, I'm going to start somewhere. So you need a starting point, somewhere. In that starting point, you will figure out that, oh, okay, so James is talking about skills, and this material is about knowledge side of things, and this material is about experience side of things. So a combination of these skills and knowledge, and then you also need to experiment, right? So you would experiment these things on the projects that you're working on, or you would basically test on your own and ask testers to review that. So that can also be a great thing, and it's also important for you to find a coach. So in my case, I was really lucky that I got James and Michael to coach me online, and that really helped me. And then of course, I also went and actually met them. So I was largely benefited and by finding a guru. And it's important for you to find a guru. It's important for you, based on my experience, I would say that it's important for you to find more than one guru. And that'll really help you, because you need multiple personas as your guru. So I think that's an important aspect. And then the word guru is about remover of darkness. So you need to find somebody who is ready to remove your darkness. And it's not just as easy as writing an email to them and saying, please remove my darkness. It is more important about finding, showing the intent and being really worthy of somebody's time. It's not like just what's it, this person. Okay, another thing is this, right? If Steve Jobs was alive, I would have loved to be coached by Steve Jobs, but on the business side. But he's not going to bother about me. Today he doesn't, of course. But now, even if I reach out to Elon Musk or any other figure whom I consider to be the greatest figure, and I try to reach out to them, either they may not have the bandwidth, or even if they have the bandwidth, they would want to pick a certain kind of people who can even understand their advice. So what is important is that we ready ourselves. And this is a very spiritual thing that I say, that if you are in the search of a guru, the guru is also in search of you. So that could be a great starting point for you. So I think I have shared with you a high level of my experience, and I'm looking at other questions as well. In case you missed this question, no problems. If not, replying to just okay. So the other question comes from Amit Rajshekhar. He says, how DevOps culture will be affecting software testing. So we are going through. So we all were working in a waterfall model. What happened? There were people coming and sharing success stories based on waterfall model. Then we had the wave of so-called agile, right? And then everybody in most of the conferences would come and say, "Oh, we do agile, and this is the success that we got." Today, or the current generation are doing something like, "Oh, we are doing DevOps." What is DevOps? So let's talk about what is DevOps for a tester. Every time such a wave comes, one common topic in most of the conferences that I see is that, how does testing become relevant in the age of DevOps? I'm sorry, I need to take a few seconds to laugh about some of the jokes that are happening around. Making testing relevant to DevOps. Okay, interesting. So people, so one important thing is that people, as they learn how to build software, that's what has been happening over the generations. People are learning how to build software. The world hasn't yet successfully cracked it, but some of them have, because they are able to hire a certain talent, and some of them have not, because they are not able to hire those talent. Okay, so that's the only difference that I see. Now, even for those who have been able to hire that talent, what I've seen is that again, I'm going to talk about the culture of the organization and the in terms of the evolution, right? Over generation after generation, to be more and more efficient. This efficiency, now people thought that it has been successfully sold that manual testing is less efficient. You know the sad part? Testers have bought into this. Forget somebody else who is not doing testing or who has not done testing buying into this. Testers have bought into the idea that manual testing is inefficient. I mean, in most of the presentations I see about introduction to automation, people will say manual testing is slow. Well, as Michael Bolton says, slow compared to what? What are you comparing with? I mean, like, for example, I would say automation is, slower than a Ferrari car. Does it even make sense, right? Tomorrow we will use AI and say AI is faster than automation. I think that people are missing the point. So connecting all of this to DevOps, I think with the DevOps coming in, whatever that means to to people are trying to be more efficient. Okay, that's what the fundamental of, be it agile or be it DevOps, or tomorrow there could be something else is. So in the name of efficiency, they have identified certain things not working, certain things working. So testing is something that in a lot of companies they want the developers to do. But having built a services company, having worked with so many dev teams, having worked with so many product teams, one thing I can be absolutely sure of is that it needs a certain kind of culture to make a developer to test. In most of the cultures that we see, that is not there. So what we are doing is we are taking what has worked for that 1% rich community of the world and trying to apply that to the 99% middle class and the lower middle class community, and say that because it worked in Google, it should work here. But the culture of Google, their expectation of from their people, their cash balance that is there in Google, all these things determine to make a certain strategy work. But the way the world takes is that as it has worked in Google, it will work here. I mean, here's what I will say. Well, you hire somebody from the kind of places and from the kind of education that people have had. That background is insufficient to make certain things work. So people have been having this epidemic of implementing what has worked for some teams somewhere in the world. Now, yes, there are lessons learned from it, but the lessons learned are not about bring this efficiency, remove, and they come and do what is easily, what is very easy, right? What is very, very easy. And I think that's something that we keep making as choices, right? We always make very convenient and easy choices. So and what's been the easiest choice is to cut the testing, because if this phone is tested phone, is being let's say if it's been tested, bug fixed, and everybody said this seems to be good enough and released, versus the developers, the producers, the product owners just putting the pieces together and releasing it to the market, will you know the difference till you use it? You will not. So from that perspective, the one thing that people squeeze is the testing, and they don't want manual testing in some cases because they think that it is inefficient. It's because they have seen it being done inefficiently. So they make a general conclusion about the world. So when you talk about DevOps testing, I would say that that the world continuously is looking at more and more increasing efficiency, and they're trying to find some ways, but largely getting it wrong is what I would say. Great. So then I would move to the next question about regression testing, especially for app in a very narrow period. Oh yeah, this question is from Chandan Kumar. Certainly, regression testing itself is a very complex topic, and the way we do it is the first thing that I learned about regression testing when once I became a tester, was regression testing means executing all the test cases, because we never know where we put the puncture in the product, right? So there's this massive documentation, and we have to execute all the test cases. But the interesting thing about regression testing is a combination of a consistency check and a variability check. Now, a lot of people try to do the consistency check, but not the variability checks. And so the consistency checks and the variability tests. How do we do regression testing in a narrow time period? Well, we have to be honest and say this is what we can do, and these are the risks of doing lower coverage. I just addressed this some time ago. I want testers to be courageous. I want testers to go speak up and say that, look, it's just, if you want me to do regression testing in one day for these important major fixes you have done, it's not possible. However, I'm not blocking your release. What I'm going to do is, in one day, I'm going to tell you that based on my experience, I'm going to cover these critical areas for you on critical set of phones, and then I'm going to tell you that. The other thing is that there are plenty of tools today that the testers can use. So there are enough bots. So there are platforms like the one that I built, but there are also other platforms where you can upload your APK or your IPA, and you can get a bot scan report of is it crashing on these phones? Is it how is it actually performing across these phones and things like that. So I think that there are opportunities for you to increase the coverage in that shorter period of time. And at the same time, it's also important for you to become a risk advisor in terms of saying, no, this is not actually possible, right? So that's what my opinion about that topic is. Someone says, hi, how are you? I'm doing very good. I'm doing consistent. My today's question is that I've observed people stop doing ISTQB certification once they achieve foundation level. Why so? Is it because of hard syllabus? I don't know much about ISTQB. I had very strong opinions against ISTQB a while ago. Now I don't care about it at all. It's what can I say about ISTQB is that for some people they think it's useful. I think there is so much of knowledge to gain in testing that it can't be packed and somebody can't be certified about it. And you're right when you say that if a lot of people are dropping out after the foundation level, maybe the foundation level hasn't given them the foundation of curiosity about testing. That's what it was supposed to have done. So then the other question is about the equipping develop. Yeah, okay. So if you're talking about networking products, Amit is asking about, okay, networking products, they're equipping a DevOps skill in regression testers so that they can effectively work with the dev team. So certain kinds of products. So for instance, if you are testing a network based product, or if you're testing a backend APIs and things like that, you certainly need to be technical. And the regression testing there, what they mean by that is, let's say, testing for routers, for which you need to know certain code level things so that you can go code, you can configure a few things. You may need to change the config file. You may need to change certain parameters. You may need to spoof certain parameters. You may need to write a few tools. But one thing I will tell you this: what's important is the concept. Once you know the concept, in case you exactly don't know how to change a few things, that either can be learned, or you can hire an assistant who can help you do that for you, right? Now Now for me today as a CEO, I have an assistant. Why is it that the tester should not have an assistant, right? Is it like only CEOs do such a complex job that they need an assistant? No, everybody needs an assistant. Okay, today there are actually AI tools coming in which does like us which does like an assistant. Like for example, if you see an Alexa or a Google and things like that, they're trying to build an assistant. So like that. In the testing space, a lot of people are now building products which acts like an assistant, and I think that's a great idea. You can have a human assistant, you can have a tool assistant, but one thing is for sure, that if you are conceptually good, if you're conceptually good, even if you don't know the specifics, you can do a great job. And even during an interview, you will be able to showcase your value and say that, hey, this is something. And I believe the real passionate teams would certainly like somebody who knows the concept. For instance, we all work on software, we all do software testing, right? And during our so-called education and so-called engineering, we would have studied about the OSI, 7 layers. We talk about application layer and transport layer, and that layer, this layer, and all of that stuff. How much of it do we really know? How much of it are we applying? So I met a customer recently, and they were saying that, well, my biggest challenge with the testers today is that if they find a bug, they don't know, is it happening because of there's an API issue, or if it's a front end issue, and they seem to report all issues as the front end issues. So that's probably why I think a lot of companies have started to ask about that. But at the same time, what I would say is that the concept part is more important, okay, than anything else. And once you learn the concept, you can apply to a wider range, and you will be able to convince people, even though you don't have the specific skills. And those specific skills you can certainly gain as you practice and as you work. So that's what it is. While I read some questions, I'm going to sip some water. What's the most common demand by prospective clients? Functional versus automation versus performance versus security? What appeals to them? Great question. You've kind of put it in the order, right? Functional, automation, performance, and security. You've already said it. So functional testing is a continuous problem for them, right? Which is why when somebody says they're a tester, you can imagine that they're doing functional testing. Then about automation. So people think that, oh, I've done enough so-called exploratory testing. Now I can automate some of these tests, and they try to do automation, and then after these two things are solved, they say, okay, let's look at performance, because now the users have scaled and something is not going well. So then they start to focus on performance, and then when something goes really bad, that somebody stole the data, somebody tweeted saying that I could access your blah blah blah, then they start looking at security. So this is how it usually is. But there are some companies with some good culture where they give equal focus. Now, when I started to build products, I said that people are going to focus more on functional, and they may not be focusing on performance. So the product that we are building has a functional and performance in parallel, that you do your functional, and in the background the performance profiling and everything happens. So I think that's the vision that we need to bring in, that people do functional, and there should be a tool which would latch onto the functional testing and does a performance profiling and a security assessment and a UI assessment and a vulnerability assessment and all of that stuff. But yes, the functional testing is going to continue to have this. So somebody's saying missed answering this. Okay, I'm going to go back to those questions and see which one did I miss. Can you please repost it, just in case if I have not seen it in the stream, and I'll certainly answer that. What's missed answering this one? Okay. Which one is better for testers from a learning and career development perspective, service or product companies? Okay, great. This is a very common question. This question existed when I was a fresher. This question will exist when my daughter, also tries to get into a job. I think, see, as a services company, we are working with product companies, right? And so we are all working for product companies. So there's only one culture, which is the product culture. Okay, one. The second thing is this. Let me try to rephrase your question a little bit. It's not just about services versus products. It is also about, or rather, it's about, do people care for quality or don't care for quality? These are the only two companies that exist in the world. So when you are searching for a job, in case you're asking that question, for that job, part of it, I would say, look for companies who care for quality. You have better opportunity to learn. Look, don't fall to the trap that they have like this awesome product in the market and they're doing awesome revenue and you're going to get great compensation, blah blah blah. Don't fall for the trap. You interview them rather than just they interviewing you, and focus on, do these people care for quality? Do these people care for excellence? Do these people want to improve? If you get into a team, be it services or product, which are lethargic, they are not passionate, they're like, so what, I just need a job, 9 to 5. No matter what, your career is doomed. Because for me, one thing that has bugged me quite a lot is that I never wanted to stay with people who are not passionate. Because 1 year of living with them will make me also the same way. So it's very, very important for you to choose people who are passionate, who are focused on excellence, who are really want to produce a great quality software, and that they are energetic. So instead of looking at services versus product, it's important for you to look at these kind of qualities versus those kind of qualities. Okay, great. So how different is testing perception in India versus rest of the world? Okay, great question. So I've spent a lot of time in India, and I occasionally travel outside of India. Sometimes I feel that the problems that I'm talking about is very India specific, because when I go out and talk to some people, they feel oblivious to what's happening, right? So I know a few experts whom I spoke to and saying, we don't have these kind of problems, but we can empathize with you. I'm like, oh, okay, you don't need to empathize with me, but I know there'll be, in your context you will have a few problems. In our context, we'll have a few set of problems. One. The second thing is this: India is a massive outsourcing hub. So a majority of the work comes from, let's say, the West and the East and all of those places, and then the central point, becomes India. And one of the things that I've seen is that the culture, when they outsource to the culture that's there in their offices, is so different. Why would they treat the outsourced testers in a different way than their testers in their office? This is another thing that has surprised me quite a lot. So I would say that the culture of testing in India, it's not just Indians who are responsible for the way it is. It is the whole world, because the whole world is outsourcing it to countries like India. And today a lot of products, homemade, India-made products are there, but they've largely been people who had worked in services companies and then migrated to build these kind of products across. So that's what I would say. And in terms of perception, yes, India still seems to have that perception that it's a cheap place to outsource. It's cheaper. It's not fully cheap because the cost is certainly has increased. And the second thing is, I would say that in terms of the value, in terms of the value part of it, in terms of the trust part of it, the trust level is very low when they outsource for some reasons. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why um, very heavily scripted test cases what still exist in the market. So that's one of those things that I've actually found out. Any other questions that I should be looking at? I'm just looking at those questions. Okay, so being a testing company and there are no projects to deliver at a time in the year, do you think apart from testing, there should be other areas we can explore by taking more projects apart from development services? Okay, so this is I think someone who is working in a services company, and okay, so it depends on the founder. It depends on the founder's vision. So, for instance, when it comes to Moolya, what I can answer is that we have got a lot of requests for development services, but we have never ventured into it for one reason, is that we don't have that in the DNA. For the sake of money, if we take it up, we'll screw up our reputation and things like that. But if your company has the capability, you're free to take it up, and it's about the founder's vision. If the founder thinks that we can do dev services and the testing services, well, you can actually pick it up. However, this question is coming from a tester, working in the company. It's hard for you to go convince them and say that, hey, we are free, we can pick up other kind of work and things like that. So I would say it's important for you to have a conversation with the founder or with the business head who can take this decision in your company. Okay, so what are the challenges you faced when you take a testing project which need to be delivered in less time, let's say 1 week, but as per your estimation, it requires 3 to 4? Yeah, so I think there's quite a lot of questions relating to estimation, be it you ask about regression testing or DevOps or agile or so what I would say is that we have been in that situation, and we put ourselves as risk advisors, and we say that, look, you can't build a bridge in a short span of time, because even if you do, the bridge is not going to have the strength to transport what you want to transport. So what you could say is, if there is only 3 or 4 days time and you want to move these goods from here to here, I can work out a path for you, which may not be like a bridge. Here's a temporary one, but if there is more time, we can do it. Now, the mistake happens when testers don't communicate this upfront, where they don't set the right expectations. Instead, they give an impression that they are going to get everything in the 1 week, right? So what we have to do is say, okay, so this is going to take 3 months, and they say, no, you just got 1 week. I say, okay, great. What do you want me to chop off? You want me to chop off these tests? You want me to chop off coverage on these devices? You want me to chop off these? You wanted me to chop off this? If you have access to analytics, you can say, oh, look at our analytics. These are the top 10 use cases. These are the top 3 kind of user personas. These are our top 10 devices. These are our top 4 browsers. If we do this coverage, it would solve 85% of the coverage, and then we could look at other aspects. So I can get back to you in a week about 85% use cases, but this will be broad, this will not be deep. So you might have a problem with this, which we have not been able to find, but it won't be at a surface layer, it will be at a deep layer. So there is an 80% chance that when you make this version go live, you will not lose users. So that's how I would actually set the expectation up front and then go about testing about it. So that's how it would be. Or to say that what is the risk of going live in a week with limited test coverage. Hey, but note this important thing. I think we're continuously missing one point. The one point that we are actually missing is that even if you test in a week and you're going to find let's say plenty of bugs, who's going to fix those bugs? Somebody has to fix those bugs, and once they fix a bug and they give you a new release, your clock resets to zero. I mean, you can't say that. So here's a classic thing that happens. You say, let's assume you get version 4.3 as a release, and you're testing. You keep finding bugs, and you've reported a lot of critical bugs, and they fix those critical bugs because they're free, and they give you a version 4.7. Now, will you continue testing, or will you reset your clock to zero? Ideally, you should reset your clock to zero, but this never happens. So we continue from where we left off. So we have covered, even in the 1 week, why things go wrong is because we do 20% of the testing in 4.6, then they give us a bug fix release, and we continue it as though it is the same release, and we do another 20% and another 20% and another 20%. And the release candidate, we have only tested the last 20%. So 80% we have not tested. This is how classic cases of releases are happening across, and that's the reason why testing is looking ineffective. So I would say, this is based on to my experience. I would recommend that you upfront say this is the risk, and then you reset your clock, and you would also tell them that if you give us in between, this is what it is, and then let them make the decision. You don't make the decision. Somebody is paid to make this decision. If you make this decision, then you better get paid for that one as well, right? Okay, so that's what I would say. Now I'm going back to some of the questions. As a business owner, you have to deal with so many things. So it says, as a business owner, you have to deal with so many things in a day, in an hour, or maybe concurrently all the time. Do you agree to some extent that when someone becomes a business owner, even as a testing service provider, he or she becomes a better exploratory tester, more risk-based tester, and a better decision maker? If yes, do you think that we need to discover? Okay, this is a great question. Sandeep Garg again. I want to tell you a beautiful story. When I was a tester, which I still am, but when I was a hands-on, active, full-time tester, I used to talk about, oh, these are risks. Oh, these are the decisions that needs to be made. But when I really wore the business hat, is when I really understood the true meaning of a risk and true meaning of making decisions. So from that perspective, I would, today, if I were to create this awesome program for testers, I would do three things. First, I would ask them to build their own product. I would ask them to write code for it. And I would ask them, of course, to write, it can even be calculated. The third thing I would do is I would ask them to sell it to somebody and get money for that, product. If they do these three things, and then they come into testing, their testing is going to be way better than anything else. Because look at it, as testers, we are a part of business, right? We are all part of business. If you're a part of business and we have no clue of what actually business is, we have no clue how marketing works, we have no clue how sales works, we have no clue how actually development works, what are we going to add as a value? And that's also one of the reasons why those functions, people think, what are these testers actually talking, right? So I would say that for me as a business owner, yes, there's a lot of context, switching. And if you're asking me, does it make us better exploratory testers? Yes, it forces us to think, but I wouldn't say that this is the only way to think. So I'm not trying to glorify, becoming a business owner. And I would say that, becoming a business owner puts you closer to the fire, because you're much more closer to the fire and you're continuously getting the heat. You are likely to learn the lesson so that you move away from the heat. So this is what happens. And I've done a pain analysis, in my company once, and where is the pain and who is taking what kind of pain and all of that stuff. So pain is another area that you need to be looking at. But it's a really, really good question. I'm not surprised it came from you. And apart from that, what do you feel when it comes to checklists? Do you think that the checklist to test any module should be a Bible for a tester? If yes, how much weight do you think? Okay, so as the question suggests, it's a checklist, right? And do you know, it's not that do you know, you might already know, but it's my duty to remind you that the pilots, no matter how well trained they are, no matter how many flights they have taken, they have checklists before every flight, and after every flight, and during every flight. So for them, these checklists are absolutely mandatory. They ensure safety, they ensure efficiency, and all of that stuff. So they have to follow these things. Now, are they following it like Bible? I don't know, but I think that the airline industry has made it mandatory. So there is no escape for them. They can't say, "Oh, it's so boring, we'll not do it," blah blah blah, and all of this stuff, because there is a value. Because that's a great way to prevent, disasters, from happening. So what's it? Pilots do that religiously. Now, do testers do that? Testers need to build a checklist that they will value. Now, one big problem is that when it comes to airlines, a lot of things is actually static. So when the pilot goes to a Boeing 747, the 747, a particular series, is not changing every day. So the checks are actually routine. There is a standard set of checks. What's a checklist? However, for us as a product, when it comes to a product, there's new things that is getting added. There's some things being removed. There's some things that is getting added. An interesting thing that happened, recently with one of our customers. Maybe they were actually testing the testers. They made they had a native app, and suddenly one of the pages they made it as a web page. So you're transacting, and in between you get into a native page and a web page, and there's a transition that happens between actually these two. So now your checklist, although it looks like it's working, it will fail because you've built the checklist for a native app, and suddenly there's a mobile web component coming in, which is made to look exactly like a native. So and unless you have systems that will detect this, you're going to be fooled by it. So these are some of the interesting context which expose to us that having a checklist is important, but also maintaining the checklist and continuously updating the checklist is far more important. So from that perspective, the second thing is this: many testers that I speak to, I ask, their test cases are all actually checklists only. Because I want you to go back, if you've written any test case documentation in your company, or somebody else has written, please see how many times the word check is written in the document. Too many times. And how many times is test written in the document? Very little. So what people do produce is actually a checklist and a very a deep a lot of unnecessary details into the checklist. And so it is important to have checklist. It is important to have those consistency checks, but at the same time, the maintenance of it is equally important, which a lot of people don't do. So that's what my pointer is about that. Great. So that's quite a lot of good questions coming up. And then is there anything else that I can help you people with? Is there any new? Oops, there are some new questions that have come. Okay, great. So Sandeep Garg has mentioned a book, the Checklist Manifesto by by Atul, and he recommends that as a great book to read. Great. Okay, awesome. So, and then is testing dying as companies are downsizing testing teams? This question is asked by Gaurav. Gaurav, testing will never die. Um, so testing is a feedback system, right? And let me tell you this. Okay, today the medical profession have actually figured out that there is more money in testing than in surgery, which is the reason why today, if we go to most of the hospitals, they write a ton load of tests because it's a feedback system. So till the test results come, nobody can say whether there is a disease, there's no disease, and things like that. And what if you see a lot of investment that's happening even on the so-called AI thing into healthcare is about diagnosis. It's about the tests. So I think there is it is. I know people have been trying to put in fear into a lot of people, saying that what's the testing is dying, blah blah blah, and all of that stuff. I would say this. Here's what I would say. I want more people to say that. Hey, that's how I can succeed as a businessman, right? The more people think that testing is going to die, testing is going to die, testing is going to die. There's one guy or his business which is growing, which is let's say Pradeep's business, or there are of course more people like me. I would say yeah, testing is dying, but my business is becoming big. How is it possible? That's because testing is not dying. Testing has grown so much, and it has grown so much that I can tell you that we are not going to run out of work at all. So that's one of those responses. Let's consider. So there's another question. What's your advice to software testers in the year of 2010, and what's your advice in the year of 2019? Oh, great question. So somebody is giving me the 10-year challenge. What advice did you give in 2010, and what advice are you giving in 2019? In 2010, I was giving advice. In 2019, I don't want to give advice. So this is this is how I have transitioned from 2010 to 2019. Now, rather than advice. So in 2010, I was asking people to be absolutely passionate. Passion is a fire. The fire can light a candle, or it can burn a forest, right? So this is something that you would have already heard. It's not something that is come to my mind. Now, the candle that you can light is, let's say, the product that you're testing, or the colleagues that you're working with. The forest that can that the passion can burn is you yourself, because when you're passionate, you're emotional. When you're emotional, you are more outspoken. When you're more outspoken, you have larger chances of making mistakes. And when you make mistakes, people can start hating you. And when people start hating you, you can start doubting yourself. So it's a vicious loop. Now, my advice about passion that has changed is have a controlled passion. Have a systematic, controlled passion. Being over passionate can actually make you not be able to bring out your own skills. So I would say have a controlled passion. That's one, one actually change in the way I perceive to myself. And this is an advice that I've given to myself rather than any other, what's it, testers out there. But that's a good question though. Um, Great. So, and then there are a few unanswered questions. So Mahesh is reminding me that there are a few unanswered questions, and he has given me a link to go through. So I'm just going through those questions over here. Yes, sure. So Preeti is asked, can you please provide a few tips to improve quality into a product? Great. So in terms of quality into a product, I have to quote Jerry Weinberg. Jerry Weinberg said, I would say quality is value to some person who matters. And then Michael Bolton, I think, extended it, to say, and it's our job to find out who matters and what matters to them, right? So using that as a reference to quality, I would say that we have to begin from who are our customers and what matter to them. In majority of the cases, we actually don't know. When I started asking about a lot of analytics to product owners, and they started to share the analytics, be it the user complaints, or be it analytics like the Google Analytics or the Mixpanel or the Crashlytics, I got a great feedback about my testing. I was actually testing something else, thinking that was important, but the users were doing something else. Their concerns, their pain areas, or their pain points were completely different. So the moment I found out who the users are and what they want, then my whole testing changed, which then I would say that it was more useful to help produce quality. The other thing, I have to go back and talk about the culture, of course. Quality is everybody's responsibility, and we have a small little role as testers, and that small little role is that our job is to find things that matter and advocate it to people who can make decisions. That's our job. So I know a lot of you people would have compared yourself to what Sherlock Holmes is, or probably a Nancy Drew, or I don't know about whatever you've read. But the reason why we have compared to all of those characters is because our job is to do that investigation and come up with the different types of hypotheses and inform it to people who have to make decisions. A Sherlock Holmes wouldn't make decisions, but a Sherlock Holmes would make it easy for people who make decisions, because the evidence found would be, and the way the evidence would be presented would be in such a way that the decision maker's job is just to say, yes, I agree to that. And I think that everybody knows that they have to be like Sherlock Holmes, and they do that in terms of finding the bug, but not in the way they're presenting, but not in the way they're investigating, but not in the way they're coming up with their own hypothesis or the counter hypothesis. So that is the missing piece part of it. So that's about quality and everybody's responsibility and what role we can play as testers. Apart from that, any other questions? I think, okay, Tina asked, how does testing differ in service and product? Yes, I think I've already answered this over. And then again, Preeti has asked, back in the day, it was considered a sign of loyalty and longevity to stick with one employer for decades and then retire. But in today's world, both employer and employee both have loads of options. But in testing industry, specifically when it comes to manual testing, many managers believe of hiring fresher than experienced one. One important reason is budget. Okay, one thing I can tell you is that if you're a manual tester and you're not finding a job elsewhere, always please knock the door of Moolya, because we know for sure that there is plenty and plenty of opportunities. So don't take what some managers are doing to you or telling you as the way the whole industry is, and they're just blind to the to the real fact of it. Okay, and the second point is about in terms of, so you mentioned about loyalty, and that both employer and employees have a lot of a lot of options. Well, you know what? What's because of continuously being fired in jobs that I was a long time ago, I absolutely understand the pain of going through interviews and getting a job. It's an absolute painful process. It's exactly like a woman going through labor pain. It's such a hard pain to go through. So, okay, today, for people to quit and go, quit and go, quit and go, when they're in the first 10 years, it looks very easy. Oh, that you go to 3 interviews, you get a job and things like that. But after that, it starts to get really, really difficult. Of course, because you become expensive, and they want certain value add at that level if they're paying that money, and if you have not been able to contribute that value in the previous organizations, or you're not able to present yourself, then it becomes a big risk for them and things like that, right? So this is on the candidate side. I would say on the employer side, because I've been on the both sides. I don't want people to quit. I'm not looking at, oh, you are replaceable. I think there are certain cultures for that, but at least in the companies that I'm building, I would say that I want people to stay with me forever. And what I tell my people today is that we are together in this journey, whether it's this startup, next startup, a hundred other startups that we might do, but we are together in this journey, and we there is a strong commitment both sides that we will do. And that's also one of the reasons why you would have seen some of my LinkedIn updates where I've said that there are quite a lot of people who had resigned have actually come back into Moolya. So this is largely a culture driven thing. And then please provide some advice for experienced manual testers to survive an excellent testing. Well, the problem, as I said, is that there is an absolute need for manual testers. I mean, I know we are referring to exploratory testers as manual testers, but coming back to the point is that there is a massive need. I just don't know who are these people who are trying to get rid of these manual testers. And let me tell you this: all of those companies either outsource the testing and make it look like there is no manual testing happening inside their company, or the people who said they're doing automation are actually doing manual testing. This is the ultimate truth. Take the top class companies here in India, top class companies, and that's exactly what's happening. So I would say that there is a future, but I'll tell you how the world has changed. Previously, that in terms of what's the efficiency, people were ready to accept a low efficiency. Today, they are not in a position to accept a low efficiency. So there are manual testers. For a manual tester to be surviving and to grow, they need to be a strong in the product, knowing the industry, or actually knowing the product. Then it's about finding the risks and being able to take it to the stakeholders. If people are not impacted by what you're doing, then they think that you are not doing something useful. So, traditionally, people who are in manual testing have been people with a lot of fear. So it looks like they are like very afraid. They don't know how to present. So their communication is not great, or they're afraid about presenting what they've found, or they think that they would lose their job, blah blah blah, because they have like the for some of them, manual testing is their last opportunity to be in IT but not be in the BPO. So this is how traditionally it has been. Now the evaluation is that you got to be really good, because you're not the first generation tester. You are probably the third or the fourth or fifth generation tester who is there in the market. So the expectation from a fifth generation is certainly much higher than what was in the first generation. So from that perspective, I would say that for somebody to even call themselves a manual tester, if they don't know product, if they can't understand business, if they can't understand technology, they can't shine. And the other part that I mentioned about the shallow thing versus the deep thing. You can be a manual tester. You don't need to code. But however, when you find a bug, you need to have the necessary investigation skill to say, is this a front end issue or is this a back end issue? This is what in today's world, if manual testers are able to say this, that hey, this is a back end issue. I found this bug. It is visible in the front end, but it's actually originating in the back end. Any manual tester who says this, I'm telling you, there's a great future. And if somebody is out there who is able to say this but without a job, okay, please knock the door of Moolya. We certainly want to work with you. So that's what I would say. Is there any other questions that I've left out or has come up? Great. I think that's a pretty good coverage. What's your suggestion for the people who become CEO or CFO, etc.? What's your suggestion for people who become CEO? For people who become CEO or CFO, what's the suggestion? You mean for those who have been testers and then who want to be a CEO or a CFO? Because I'm not getting this specific. What's your question? And then Ramit asked a question about what is the secret to build a successful team. Secret to build a successful team: have good friends. Okay, since Ramit is asking this question, building a team is a long-term activity. It's not a short-term activity. Okay, one. The second thing is that we all talk about leadership, but it takes a long time for us to understand what it really means. And in the process, we make a ton load of mistakes. And our ability to learn from those mistakes is what matters for us to build successful teams. Okay, one. And here's another aspect. We can build teams. The teams build success. So you cannot necessarily build successful teams. You can build teams, and once we build the team, for me as a founder, I am completely surrendered to the team that I've built. If I don't surrender to the team that I've built, then I'm certainly will keep causing a friction. So from that perspective, today, it's my team who is creating the success, and my job is just to keep the team intact. So that's what my response is for Ramit's question. Then Mayank asks, hi Pradeep, why is the industry becoming more delivery focused than quality focused? The number of 0-day quality mishaps are on the rise. Your thoughts? Why is the industry becoming more delivery focused? Great. So there is a pressure. So again, this goes back to the culture of the companies. Companies want to put things out. There is an obsession for a lot of people who build products to put things out into the market. Like, I've also tried building a few products, and I kind of get why there is a pressure that, you know, they go through, because you want to take your product out into the market. You want to show that your product solves this problem for the customers and things like that, right? So there is a massive pressure for people to actually put things out, because they think that that's like the culmination point of all of their all of the efforts that they're actually taking. So they're obsessed, and their culture is actually set in such a way that they are sometimes measured based on how much they put out, and how often they put out, and not about the quality of what they put out. So if the speed is the focus, then what they do is that they focus on the speed. For quality, we need to go at a certain slow pace. Now, this slow pace, if you see, is a very hard thing to get for a lot of companies. Like I said, some things that work for Google, well, if you have billions of dollars lying in the back, right, you can sit aram se and you can be slow. But if you have a pressure that, hey, you know, I have to make an X dollars or X $1,000 by this time, then obviously the pressure will get to them. So how do you meet your, how do you meet your targets? You meet your targets by adding more features to your product. And so people try to release a lot of things, and then somebody has committed to something in the hierarchy, and they have to deliver, and the CEO is expecting a certain deliverable at a certain time, and that CEO happens to be like an XYZ person who is absolutely impatient and things like that. So that's one of the reasons why culturally and systematically people have built a pressure to put things out rather than put things out in a great quality perspective. So that's what it is. Great. So these two are missed. I think probably these were read more link. Okay, Mahesh, I think you've actually copy pasted a few questions. I think, okay, so Vishal has asked me, who named you Kung Fu Panda? Any story behind it? Okay, nobody is gonna come and give you an Oscar award. You have to create it, like that. I felt that my story is very similar to the story of the Kung Fu Panda. And coincidentally, the part 1, 2, and 3 that came also matched with the kind of journey that I was going through in my life. So when I wrote to James Bach, it was like the panda going to Master Shifu and saying, coach me. And then, of course, James didn't take me seriously at the start, which is the classic of James Bach. And then James Bach said, oh, a lot of Indian testers write to me saying that they want to be good in testing, but they're not serious, and here's the problem. And then, this is exactly like how, Master Shifu said, by tomorrow that panda will be gone. And that panda, as it happened in the movie, was not gone. It was working hard to produce that output. And then Master Shifu was convinced, which is James Bach was convinced, and then the story happened. And then similar to that. So I found that the kind of things that I do, I have a humor sense, I have a skill, I have some seriousness about what I'm doing. I have this absolute, passion, like the panda who wanted to become a Kung Fu master. I wanted to become a testing master, although today I will not consider myself a master. I would consider myself a student, and I would say that, so I found quite a lot of, the similarities. Plus, the most important reason why a lot of people also believed it is I was like insanely fat. Right, so I was like super fat, and then I also looked like a panda. So people said, oh, he's a tester, he's funny, he's crazy, he's passionate, and he's doing some stuff. And then he looks like a panda, so they kind of said, okay, fine, we will take you in as a panda. Although I don't think everybody took it, but I'm happy as long as I need a story to myself, which is absolutely exciting and motivating. So I've got that. So I'm quite happy about it. And then how do you sell testing to companies who think testing is least bothered thing in product development? Well, we try to carefully choose the companies, and for those companies who don't value testing, we become a problem for them. So sometimes they say bye-bye to us, and sometimes we say bye-bye to them. So we don't get along with companies who don't value testing, and that's not my customer base. So that's what I would say. And then the other question is which qualities a best QA resource should or must have from your point of view. Then Srinivas asked, what are the skills do you see which current testers whom you lack, and what things they need to do to upskill? Oops, that's a very complexly worded one. I'm gonna try to be slow on that. I want to become a product owner. What skills do I need to have to upskill myself? Okay. So Srinivas has asked a series of questions over here. I think Mahesh, I missed these questions. I'm sorry for that. So trying to answer, I want to become a product owner. What skills I need to have to upskill myself? You first have to fail building products. So first you start building simple things. You can start building a calculator. You can start building some things on your own, depending on, you want to be a product owner of a software product, right? So you could start, doing those things. For instance, right now I have built about 6-7 products and failed. And today I can say that, yeah, I know something about product development, and I believe that the next attempt or my current attempt that I'm doing is going to be really, really good, because I failed and learned. Now this learning, also happened by meeting people who have built products and continuously learning from them, and then also learning from some of the books that these people have actually published. So learning to be a product owner, the learning part of it is no different from learning to be a good tester or learning to be a good product owner and things like that. So the fundamental remains the same, but how do you apply the fundamental? You certainly need a mentor. You certainly need, like for instance, right now we have an awesome mentor who has been there, done that at a very large scale, who is helping us to shape the product and things like that. So you certainly need those people who cut short your learning experience from 10 years to 1 year, and then they would suggest you the path and all of that stuff. So for me, if I wanted to learn something, the first thing that I would do is to go find my guru, and without that, I don't think I'm going to learn in a holistic way. I am going to learn, but I'm going to be half-baked, and that half-baked certainly kills in the long term. So that's what it is about trying to become a product owner. And then you're saying, okay, nowadays we are hearing about AI, data science. According to you, how AI is influencing software testing. What testers need to be prepared for that? Okay, look, I wrote a post about AI-driven functional testing. It's a very deep post, which is also the reason why a lot of people have not read it. I've actually published this in the Appachhi blog. So if you Google for AI-driven functional testing, you can go read that. So in Appachhi, we tried building an AI-driven automation and AI-driven testing. And in the journey of building that is when I realized that there are fundamental testing problems that are not solved. So I started to focus on fundamental testing problems even before starting to apply AI, to them. Now, there are a few products out there in the market which are all focused on applying AI largely to automation or largely to UI diff kind of stuff. But but here, if you see the questions that people asked, today, there's a pattern, right? There's like 30 to 40% of the questions talk about test estimation, and people not understanding the value from testing, and people not understanding quality, and the culture being wrong, and all of that stuff. Now, no matter how much AI you have to do testing, if all of these problems exist, um, you're not going to be able to produce any value from it. All right. So what I have also published, and what I've also said in the past, is AI is a good excuse for the testing industry to wake up and look at problems that they have not bothered to solve for 2 to 3 decades right now. For instance, we say that there's so many estimation techniques that are there, and even today, testers struggle to give estimates, and people override the estimates. And I'm like sometimes thinking, why are we even doing things that people are going to override? Like, for instance, no matter whatever number I say, if the manager is going to override, why even bother to give a number? Right? So then it can be like a random number generator that you can write a random number generator program and say, well, this is what it is. So for me, I'm looking at fundamental problems. AI can certainly solve it. Now, here is another beautiful example that we give. So if you look at the way the televisions have evolved, there was a phase, there was an era where there was a HD ready TVs that came, and then came the HD. Now, when the HD ready came, there were no HD channels available. There were probably 1 channel or 2 channel at a super premium, and probably to those who have who have an Apple TV. So it's like a 0.001% of the world could view something in HD. Then it took about 5 to 6 years for the industry to transition that today they have HD. So today all of the channels are going to be HD. Now that there is HD, then there is something called 4K, which has come right now, right? I don't know. So 4K. Now, how many channels do we have in 4K? We don't, but we have TVs which says we are 4K ready. So we are right now in the testing space, at a space where we are in AI readiness era. There is a preparation era, but we are not yet in the AI era. That's going to take 5 years for anybody to showcase a massive difference with AI. Till then, I think I'm going to solve, I'm going to look at fundamental, testing problems that have not been solved, and that's what my focus, primarily is going to go towards. So that's what my opinion is, and I think you should read that, blog post where I've detailed this quite a lot, explaining, going to what a test is and breaking down a heuristic and an oracle and expected results and an experiment, and then trying to come up, with the details of it. I can take a few more questions. I know it's getting late for all of us. So Vandana says, I want to make you my guru to be an awesome tester. Well, there are some real good people out there. So you should certainly reach out to them. I am not in a position of life to have people, to have the bandwidth to coach, testers. Okay, the second thing is that if you were to join Moolya, there is a high chance that I might interact with you on a testing, but I can't be your, what's a guru or anything. But as a part of my testing reviews and things like that, I could give you some suggestions. So those are some of the ways that we can still interact, and you don't necessarily need to join actually Moolya for that. If you we could if you do something interesting, I would certainly review that, and I would want to learn from it, as well. So I would say that I'm sorry, onto that front. And then you're also asking, how did you know that you have to be a software tester? Oh, great. That's a good question I can answer. So like everybody else, I accidentally became a tester, and and I wanted to become a developer. So I reached out to my first guru. His name is Sridhar Krishnamurthy, and I asked him to teach me coding. And he gave me this Cunningham and Ritchie C book, and I was midway through that book, and one day he saw me testing, and then he pulled me aside and said, "Okay, Pradeep, I've worked with a lot of testers, and I think you have a special, something special about it, and you should focus on it." And I took him really serious, and I met him very recently, and I made a joke out of him that he saved the world, by getting me into testing and not making me a programmer, because I would have been a pathetic programmer. Not that I'm a great tester right now, but I would say that I'm certainly passionate about it, and I really was happy with it. And I've also written about it that I used to call myself a crash specialist, because my company, everybody used to call that, and I believed it. And then I realized that I don't know testing at all. And then when I realized the opportunity that's there in this space, and that nobody is looking at it, and this is not like the sexiest thing that people want to do, that made it super exciting actually for me. So that's when my true passion for trying to solve a massive problem in the testing space was actually born, and I'm quite happy about the journey so far. So that's what it is. Okay, so I'm going to take just 2 more questions, and I'm going to let you all sleep. And I'm sitting in my office right now, so I'll get going to home after this. In the last few years, there's a lot of talk going on around QA versus quality assistance versus assurance. Oh yes, absolutely, Mayank, absolutely. People have been doing quality assistance in the name of quality assurance. Now, there was a time period where this debate mattered quite a lot, to me. But today what I've done is I'm focusing on the end value, right? So I can prove to somebody that what we are doing is quality assistance and not assurance. But what is the point about proving to them about this? Because I'm trying to put my vocabulary into somebody else's vocabulary, right? I know it's very important sometimes, but the way I do it is, first I need to add value, I need to become influential, and then I can say things which people would actually take. So there are a few very good experts like John Bach, who has been speaking about quality assistance versus assurance. So if a John Bach speaks, there is a certain set of people who will be influenced and who will be ready to change and things like that. So for me, I think that some of us have to have solved the problem at a large scale, to be able to change the perception of the world. But today the credibility of the testers is so poor that we going and telling them that it's assistance, it's not assurance, I don't think anybody cares about it much, although it's a very good, very important topic for actually debate. Okay, so that's what I would say. Great. So just one more question, and where do we draw the line to passion, and how will I know about it? Great. Yeah. I think so this question is coming from a Moolya. Great question, and I think I did actually talk about it, Aksa, that it's hard to draw a line for passion for things like love, right? Now, what happens in love is that if we become possessive about somebody, then we are constraining them from being natural. Similar to that concept of love is actually passion. If we become possessed by passion and possessive about what we are doing, then we get into this point of we start suffocating the space itself. So the best thing, I mean, we all share things about, like, if you know, if you love somebody, you leave them, and if they come back, they really love you, blah blah blah, and all that, all those kind of, you know, what's a fancy stories that we share. We just got to apply a little bit of that about, you know, what's a passion is that we need to have a controlled passion, because you know, in my own experience, the passion can come and burn, right? And as I said, you know, I equate passion to fire. The fire can light a candle and can help give vision to a lot of people, or it can burn a forest, and that forest can be you. So you need to have that controlled passion, and obviously you will be burnt a little bit, and that's when you will actually learn about it. So if you are not passionate, you're not going to do a great job. But if you're passionate, you're going to get burned somewhere, and you should be okay to be burned somewhere and still continue about it. But the moment you're burned somewhere, if you start to say, oh my god, this is over, then you know, that's where it starts to hurt, and that's where, you know, that's the end of the passion. So that's how I'd like to conclude. Great. So I think I've spent about 1 hour and 49 minutes over so far, and it's been absolutely a wonderful opportunity for me to not just answer questions, but also to know and discover a few people that I had not known, and also get some questions from people whom I've already known. So thanks a lot for your time, for actually sticking on around, you know, this time. And it was great. Thanks to Mahesh, and thanks to the Test Tribe group for doing a fantastic job. And I look forward to being of help. And you can certainly connect to me over LinkedIn, and you can follow what I'm doing over there. You can also follow Quora, where I write about, you know, testing. About it, but for me, what I love about answering questions is that every time I answer a question, I try to improvise, and that's what makes me quite exciting about this. And I look forward to continue to interacting. And I believe there is one more exciting thing coming up through, you know, what's a Test Drive. I'm going to be doing a half-a-day workshop. I'm going to be doing a half-day workshop around what's the date? The 2nd March. The 2nd March, I'm going to be doing a workshop in Bangalore, and you're welcome to come in, and you're welcome to to be a part of it. I'm going to have great fun interacting with you, and let's do some cool things together, and let's certainly enjoy the journey that we are on. So thank you once again. Good night. And I'm going to hit the end live video button, hoping that it'll work. And have a good night. And thanks for sticking around. And I hope to connect with you again. Bye-bye.